For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by managing editor of Al-Ahram newspaper, Mr. Muhammad Azzuddin. Welcome to Q News, sir. Now, how effective have Egypt's humanitarian efforts been in alleviating the crisis in Gaza under the current restrictions by the Israeli government?
Thanks for having me in Qnews. Absolutely, Egypt is exerting relentless effort that was manifested throughout the past few days. The direct Egyptian pressure, I do not wish to say a way of effort of mediation, but direct communications on the high level forced the Israeli occupation site in the effort of the international institutions up against or on the far-right coalition in Israel to deliver the humanitarian aid on land as Egypt's proposals hailed by the international institution. Also, it is the only sole effective role on the ground, despite the difficulties faced by the vehicles and the obstacles that aren't justified by the occupation forces in the Palestinian occupation territories. Egypt has exerted all the effort since the first moment. There were schemes to cease fire and to pose a state of peace and to release the Palestinian prisoners and to release the captives. Most importantly, to secure the access of the humanitarian and medical aids into the Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, Israel breached the truce despite Egypt's effort, along with Qatar and the US, never executed the second phase. Upon the return of the military actions, along with the machinery of killing against the civilian in Palestine and using the starvation weapon, Egypt exerted or made international effort and exposed the real pictures on what's happening on the ground in Gaza. And then the EU international community have moved strongly along with the international humanitarian agency by rejecting the GHF as they failed to distribute the aid, despite the obstacles exerted by the Israel. But it largely contributed to alleviate the pains of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and to contribute to deliver some of the fuel materials along with the medical aid to Palestine and to be handed over to the working institutions on the ground.
Sir, what alternative strategies are being used to ensure that aid reaches the Gaza civilians efficiently?
Firstly, since the implementation of halting the delivery of the aid for more than 2 months and a very hard starvation policy by Israel and the mounting international condemnation along with Egypt's pressure against the occupied side showed that there is a real failure and fiasco to the system of the GHF institution. And in addition to sustaining killing the civilians while they are seeking the humanitarian aid, so Egypt's effort prompted to allow the delivery of the humanitarian aid from Rafah crossing to the second side of the crossing in Karm Abu Salam due to the Palestinian Rafah crossing was bombed by the occupation army. In addition, they prevent for the vehicles to use it to directly deliver the humanitarian aids. And in addition to the new transaction by the occupation forces, so the aids go through the crossing of Karam Abu Salam despite the restraints, but along with the Egyptians' effort, succeeded to mitigate the starvation and the pains suffered by the Palestinian people. There is a great consensus by the international humanitarian institution and the working operated by UNRWA and others not to deal with the GHF. So, the Egyptian determination was imposed to deliver the humanitarian aid along with the international institution that mitigate and elevate the starvation weapons by Israel against the Palestinian, and Egypt is working strongly. I do not wish to say on daily basis to facilitate and remove the obstacles by the occupation forces in the Gaza Strip, despite the very dangerous circumstances that the drivers might face in delivering the aid into the Palestinian side of the Strip.
So how significant is Egypt's coordination with international partners such as the UK and securing humanitarian access and a ceasefire?
Certainly, international community had endorsed that largely to the Palestinian cause lately, following the role of Egypt to pave the way before the international community, exposing the horrors suffered by the defenseless civilian Palestinian under the Israel pretext in fighting Hamas. This matter, in addition to the French president's visit to Egypt approaching the crossing, in addition to his visit to the injured, the Palestinian injured, there was an idea amended by the European countries joined by UK, France and Canada, and the Prime Minister of Australia is floating or considering the recognition of the Palestinian statehood and the two-state solution. All the efforts, international pressure wouldn't be have resulted that way without the Egyptian efforts and the great support and endorsement by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to the Palestinian cause.
So from Cairo, that was managing editor of Al-Ahram, Mr. Mohammed Izzeddin. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News.